Still going. This is how you hot tent, kids. Welcome back. Much requested video. Today we are gonna go through our hot tent loadout. We've been asked about our specific hot tent gear a lot now, and this is our second full season of hot tenting, and we're still new, but we're getting the gear dialed in. So today's video, we're gonna go through everything we use for hot tenting and tell you why hot tenting's sweet. But first, you gotta, of course, like all these videos, hit the bell. Everybody complains when we go live and nobody knows. So if you hit the bell, you'll get notified. Like, subscribe, subscribe to Backcountry BSing channel. That's where all of our podcasts eventually go to. We're on all the major podcasting sites. Rate us, and yeah, back to the video. The stove we use. So in the hot tent, we use what's called the Wild Wild West, or the 3W titanium wood stove. I wanted to get a shot of it before we actually get it in the tent, so I can kind of show you it before it's rolling, because when it gets hot, you can't touch it. This is what the stove itself looks like. A lot of people love this stove because it's got this window here, and we agree with that. Provides a beautiful little ambiance when you're in the hot tent, and you can control the temp right here. And then we went ahead and bought the base plate for this, which is something that I would recommend doing. It costs, you know, another 20, 30, maybe 40 bucks. But it does a couple things. One, you can use this on unlevel surfaces a lot easier, and two, it gives you a nice platform to stack wood up. So we'll stack wet wood when it's in the hot tent right here. The second piece here, this is the stovepipe. So this comes with it, and once again, I just wanted to show this before we put it in the tent, because it's easier to show you how it works. So it all rolls up, and then you use these kind of like titanium rings to keep it steady. You can see this is after a year of use, and then this little area right here is where we'll put the spark arrestor and the dampener, and I'll show you that when it's running. But this is what the stove looks like. It comes in this nice little Kevlar bag, which is like super durable. I really like. Cordura, right? Not Kevlar. And then here is the spark arrestor. So this will go in here to block sparks, and the dampener. So we'll use this to control the flame. So a combination of this and the vents up front will kind of temper the blaze the way we like it. But this is what it looks like outside the tent, and then we'll get it in and we'll get it rolling.
Yeah, and another main reason that people like the window is you can easily tell when you need to add wood as well. So rather than having to open it all the time to check and see how much wood you have, you can just look in the window.
The biggest part of our tent loadout, hot tent loadout, and something we get the most questions about is the tent we use. You're looking at the Lux Octopeak hot tent. It's made by a company called Lux. They make a bunch of other hot tents. There's a few reasons why we got this specific design. So the first reason we got it is, you know, this is an Octopeak, so it's a 8-person tent. It's not, maybe without the stove, but this is the lightest tent at the time we could get that could really fit 2 people in the stove. And once we get the stove in there running, we'll bring you inside. We'll show you how much room you got. It's a lot. Here's what it looks like inside the tent. We've got the stove going, got the Doritos going. And one thing we do, kind of a little pro tip, is we keep all the bedding outside. So the air pads are all blown up, the quilts are all lofting right now. We keep everything outside. It just gives us like so much more room to do stuff in here. And we can easily fit a 3rd person to hang out. And we've got, we stack up all the wood we've prepared right there, because you gotta think we got this fire to go 16, 17, 18 hours, and what we're doing now is just getting the cold base going for about, you know, an hour or 2, and then we'll feed it some big logs. But that's what it looks like inside. Here's what the final sleeping quarters looks like. So, you pretty cozy?
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, I know, it's time to zip up. Let's get in. There are a few options you can get on this particular hot tent that we didn't get. So for instance, you can get snow skirts along the side. I opted not to get that option to save some weight. And then there's a couple other things you can get with regards to the tent that we didn't get. We got the base model Lux Octopeak. And then as you can see inside, I got the tent pole that Lux sells with this. They do make a setup where you can use trekking poles for this, and I thought about it because honestly that tent pole is aluminum. It weighs about 1 pound. But I like having the tent pole, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, dealing with the hot tent is complicated enough. if you can use this and make that part way easier, I recommend it. But you can use trekking poles if you want. And the other reason I got this tent without the snow skirts is because without the snow skirts, you get 2 entrances and 2 exits. So granted, we only usually use one primarily, but there is another entrance on the other side of the tent. But yeah, that's the tent we use, the Luxe Octopeak. All right, Andy's gonna go through the saws. What are we using?
So obviously we got the Milwaukee, I forget what they call, oh, this is called the Milwaukee Hatchet.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously this is like not something you're gonna always carry backpacking, clearly. This is just, you know, us trying new things out. Obviously this is awesome. I mean, clearly this is awesome. It just weighs a ton, and you know, this is a chainsaw, even though it is a mini chainsaw, and they are dangerous. And like, you do have to be pretty dang careful when using one of these, especially if you get careless, they'll jump around on you, even though it's small. So like, yeah, it's fun and it's cool and everything, and it made processing all this wood super easy, but it's dangerous. So like, be careful. Don't start your happy hour until you process your wood,
yeah.
Folks. We have the Granspers Brooks, I think this is the small 4-stacks, and you know, splitting logs obviously gives exposure to like more of like the surface area of the wood, burns a little bit easier, so there's some advantage to that, of course. Didn't really use it a whole bunch this trip, except for hammering stakes into the hard ground. Certainly a good tool. We've certainly used it a lot. Out of like both of these, if you have to leave one at home, you can leave the axe home, but you are relying on battery power, of course. And then obviously we've been using the Silky Gomboy as well, which is a fantastic handsaw. Highly recommend it. I will say with this, I probably cut all of the wood that we needed for tonight in about 20 minutes. It would have taken us with
2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3 hours with the Silky and the 4-stack. So, you know, we could probably split some of the rounds, but honestly I was able to find some good wood, cut it small enough that I didn't really need to do a whole lot of splitting of wood. So yeah, I saved a couple hours just with this, but it is dangerous. I should have brought safety glasses, to be honest.
All right, so a few just like miscellaneous items that we generally always bring hot tenting. So first, I'm gonna take them off. We always bring like a very, very good pair of leather gloves. And the reason we do that is, 1, we're working with axes, saws, and wood. And 2, we're working with a fire. So we have a few pairs. These are the Giver, they're famous gloves. We talk about these a lot. Great gloves. Any good pair of like leather gloves will work.
Thick leather gloves.
Thick leather gloves.
Because you're going to be touching the stove a lot.
You're going to be touching the stove, and you're going to be dealing with saws, and you always want a good pair of leather gloves. Another item we generally always bring, and it kind of helps a lot, is like a lantern light source. I'll show you later tonight, but we can hang this from the inside of the hot tent, and it'll illuminate the whole thing, and it doubles as an external battery source. So we always bring, sometimes we'll suspend like a headlamp, but generally some sort of kind of light source, just like some other random miscellaneous things. And then you gotta go hot tenting with some craft IPAs. We also are pretty adamant about using ground sheets. You can like look inside here. So what'll happen is, as it warms up in there, that snow and stuff will melt and it'll get a little muddy, and I don't want my sleeping pad on that. So there's a couple options for ground sheets. I also have like a bathtub floor that Luxe makes, but Tyvek is just easier, it's cheaper, it's lighter, it cleans really well. So we both have Tyvek ground sheets we'll put down in there, and I'll show you when they're down later. When it comes to insulation, so our rule is you always dress and prepare for the weather you're going at, regardless of whether you have a hot tent, because what'll happen is at night, when it cools down, if you're both asleep, if you're asleep in there, it's gonna cool down to like cold, and if the stove's not running, you need to be prepared. So I've got a few quilts here. Generally, I take a 20-degree setup. Where the trip we're at right now, it's gonna get down into probably the single digits at night. So I'm testing out a few different quilts, but usually a 20-degree quilt is probably gonna be okay. And if you'll check out, we brought all the sleeping pads. So always bring a winter sleeping pad. I've got a Thermarest X-Therm, a Tensor insulated, and a Thermarest Topo Lux insulated. So just testing out some pads. But the name of the game is we're always bringing cold weather winter backpacking setups. I'm not going to go through the whole setup. We have winter backpacking setups, but generally 20-degree setups, good gloves, jacket, hat, the works. That's it. That is our hot tent loadout, as it stands right now. We're always changing it. We're always getting new stuff. Being out here is hard. You can do it and be nice and warm and cozy on the inside. You should. That's it for this video. So we got some hot tent trip videos, check that out. If you're someone that's curious about hot tenting, there's a bunch of cool information on YouTube, and there's a backcountry exposure, it's good in the woods, a lot of good channels that do a lot of hot tenting. Yes. It does make your winter camping much more bearable, and that's it for this one. Bye-bye.